This week on the Droids, the High Republic has been released. A new era of Star Wars has begun. We're going to talk about the early stages of it and our plans for here on the Droids, how we're going to talk more about the High Republic series and what that all entails. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Clone Wars and how we want to dive a little deeper on the Clone Wars in 2021. Kevin Feige has a new movie in the Star Wars universe on the horizon. Rumors are abounding. We'll get into all of that and oh so much more this week on the Droids. Welcome back to the Droids You're Looking For, a Star Wars podcast. Alongside Ryan and Chris, I am Mike, and thrilled to be with these fine, fine gentlemen as the democracy does not fall to thunderous applause. The democracy survives for the moment.
The lessons Star Wars has taught us for moments like these.
I think I saw at least one or maybe several tweets about how in the world did the prequels predict this? How did they know?
I watched Revenge, as of this recording, I watched Revenge of the Sith last night.
Ooh. It's ominous.
It was,
and that is the moment where that's when the scene happens, right?
It was salient. Yes, yeah, it's exactly.
Wow.
Well, because I always think
resolve has never, although he has been left scarred and deformed, Sheev's resolve has never been stronger.
True or false? It was originally called Episode 3, Sheev's Resolve.
That is true. That is true.
That's what I thought.
Well, I think because I always think of the end of Revenge of the Sith is all of the clone troopers loading onto the ships with the new Empire, right? Or is that the end of Attack of the Clones?
Well, yeah. Okay, so the end of Attack of the Clones, they're loading onto the proto Star Destroyers, what will become the Star Destroyers, but they're still with the Republic at that point, or at least they think they are. And then at the end of Revenge of the Sith, we see the building of the Death Star.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
It seemed like they were waiting to break out the Imperial officers with the hats and stuff, or they were just waiting in space. It's unclear.
They had those in a cabinet, and they're like, well, once Order 66 goes through,
then we can finally wear our hats.
We can wear those. And then
we gotta have something to look forward to, they said.
You get the first CGI Tarkin in that scene, too.
I just noticed that watching it yesterday, and you know what? It looks pretty good.
Do you think they went back and just took it out of Rogue One, put him into...
It doesn't look that good.
That actually would be...
Fooled me.
I mean, they wouldn't... It's precedent has happened before. Why not just continue to go and mess with it and add it back in? If you can make it look better, that's been the goal.
Yeah, why not?
Wow.
They should. Special editions of the prequels.
I like it. Let's do it.
I love it.
Ooh,
that doesn't sound like something that would make anyone mad.
Let's change the white balance on all of them.
I actually think as we return to theaters in maybe a year's time, it would be a great time to re-release all Star Wars and add new footage to each of them.
I know it's not everyone's bag of chips, but ramping up to the Disney buyout, Lucas's film's plan was to have the 3D releases. I think they got Episode 1 out the door.
They got Episode 1, and then they canceled all of them. It was
and then
just
that was
Phantom Menace.
Yeah, it was that. That was it. So
I bet the pod race was pretty amazing.
I'm a fan of 3D. I'll say it.
In a world though, it's shocking to me that Chris did not see it in 3D.
It was in limited release for some reason.
You were studying abroad, probably.
I was studying abroad. I was in a bunker. It definitely is one of my biggest regrets in life.
So what you're saying is
Chris has been divorced 4 times.
It is very much your bag of chips.
It's all that and the bag of chips, yes.
It's all that, the show from the 90s on Nickelodeon,
yes,
and a bag of chips.
Exactly.
Which was my favorite show.
I like the only Star Wars I haven't seen in 3D. I've seen them all, except I didn't see The Rise of Skywalker in 3D. We watched...
Oh, you mean the ones that have been available?
Yes. And then you can still get the Blu-rays from the UK, because they still make 3D Blu-rays, and they work on most U.S. players. So
can I say real quickly, because I wasn't ready to move on from all that, that when I was a kid, I would say I was probably in 4th or 5th grade, I wrote a letter to the producers of all that begging them to be a cast member.
That's awesome.
Do you think?
Yeah. So I made it to the third round of auditions, but then the show got canceled.
Do you think Keenan
Wait,
read
really?
it?
Really? Right?
Yeah, based on they said your letter, you got gusto, kid. Come on down to Nickelodeon Studios, Florida, and we held auditions on top of the wireframe globe.
You know what always got me?
And I won the super mega aggro crag on Guts.
Yeah,
I knew.
It was me
knew
and
it.
Danny Tamborelli. It was down to between us, and he got it. Do you know, I find it shocking that I've never met anyone who was on Guts.
Yeah, you'd think so. Actually, my
think
wife
you'd
had a
run
very
into
interesting
someone.
question the other day. Do you think Guts was real kids or actor kids?
I think it was a mix.
That's what I
think it was a
said.
mix,
I said it was
'cause
a
I always
mix.
thought it was like kids who were on vacation.
Yeah.
But like
Oh,
also it was
interesting.
always like this is Lauren, but her friends call her the Spider. And it was like, no, they don't.
What did she do to get that reputation?
It was probably local Orlando kids now that I'm thinking of it.
I always
Most
thought
likely.
it was a bummer too that the grand prize was always a trip to like Disney World
where
or
you
Universal or to like Universal Studios, but it's like they're there already.
You're already
Right.
there.
So they're like, if you want to come back tomorrow, it'll be free.
That's funny. All right, well, we should probably get focused here. Focus up, guys. The Clone Wars has ended. We're now into 2021, Season 7. I know Ryan and Chris have finished up Season 7. I'm well behind Ryan, or Sam is on the verge. But as we think about the Clone Wars, Ryan, I know you have some thoughts just about the series, having recently wrapped it yourself, and maybe where we're going to go as a podcast relating to Clone Wars.
Yes. So it has happened. I have finished the Clone Wars. It is. I'm serious now. It is difficult for me to overstate how special I think this show is, and I am so late to this party. Like everybody in the world knows how amazing this show was. But having finished the show, I thought that the final arc was probably one of the best Star Wars stories ever told. I thought
Wow.
the way that the pathos of the show ending, it messed me up for days. I was texting Chris constantly because he was the only person I knew who had finished it.
Yeah. It was a support team.
I just think we are so lucky to have it, and I can't wait for the rest of the pod to finish it. And I just really, it can't be overstated how special I think this show was. I am bummed that I waited so long to watch it because I missed out on years of loving it. But at the same time, I feel like I really needed it now, so I'm happy that I got it when I did. Interesting byproduct of this, I have a friend who will remain nameless that after we had talked about the Jedi episode of The Mandalorian and how perfect we thought Ahsoka was in it, he said that he felt like something was missing. He said, like, I feel like the performance isn't all there yet. And I was like, you're insane. It was so great. It was so perfect. Having finished the Clone Wars, I still think it's that the Jedi episode of The Mandalorian is great. I do get where he was coming from now. Having seen Ahsoka's entire arc up until then, well, not entire, because Rebels as well. So I'm in the middle of that too. Yeah. Wow. But I think that I may have been, just not having seen as much of it, I may not have realized how amazing what Ashley Eckstein was doing was, and along with the animators. So it was just an amazing journey. And the Siege of Mandalore is an incredible story arc.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that it deserves to be in the conversation for one of the best series finales ever of anything.
Wow. Even so, after season 6, the actual season 7 series finale, because it was, 5 years in between? Or 7 years in between?
Somewhere around there, yeah. And the season 6 series finale is also pretty incredible.
Yeah. I
appreciate both of you not delving too deeply into exactly what happened. And every other listener is probably like, I've seen it all for years. You stink. Mike, get off the pod.
I have the same regrets, Ryan, as I wish. I want to know how that would have influenced me as a fan now. Like, had I watched the Clone Wars and then heard there was a sequel trilogy, I kind of am curious what that would have done to my fandom.
Yeah, and we were like I said, we were watching Revenge of the Sith last night, and kind of lining it up with Clone Wars and seeing how, people could say retcon, whatever. It's like they enrich the story after the fact, and how there are things in Revenge of the Sith that are more poignant because of what they did in Clone Wars.
It did strengthen the prequels a lot for me, and it also I'm even going to say, Mike, you'll love this. I think it strengthened Solo a little bit.
That's awesome.
I'd agree with that as well.
And it is very cool too with season 7. And Mike, you're probably sitting at your edge of the seat for spoilers. Don't worry. I was just going to say that the level of storytelling was kept up from that story team post Disney.
Yeah,
I think it was it's just an encouraging sign of Star Wars to say okay, they're allowing people to tell some really good stories still, so that's really nice.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. Everybody seemed to know this but me, but the Siege of Mandalore, which is the final arc of Clone Wars, is the last Star Wars story that George Lucas was involved in. He had developed it with Filoni before they had canceled and before the acquisition.
Oh wow!
So he had worked that out with Filoni, and then they kind of executed it years later. And I'll tell you, it shows.
Which that just makes me more excited, because I think one thing that the last year year and 1 month, when you include The Rise of Skywalker, has brought to me about Star Wars is I want to see more George Lucas version or George Lucas-esque Star Wars, where it's trying to show you something new or tell you something new or tell a story that has something that's meaningful beyond just whiz, you like lightsabers. Hey, one way or another, we still enjoy all of that. I'm just, it was interesting. There was a quote that was shared that I meant to send on our text thread among all of us from George, where he's like, I don't want to sit and repeat things. I don't want to do the same thing with these stories. It may not be what everyone likes, but I want to try something else. And which is something, Chris, you've always brought up on the podcast, that George not only was striving for the new in storytelling, but obviously the new in technology and the way these were shot. And I want more of that. I want more of what his vision was, even if there's parts of that I'm not going to like. Yeah. And unfortunately, we're not going to get more of that, but there's more out there for me to now experience, knowing what you just said, Ryan, since I haven't watched that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was consistently using the world of Star Wars as a prism through which to tell stories that he was interested in that were about the world we live in.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
this is no different than that.
Yeah.
And I thought it was an incredible achievement. Again, I'm late to the party. I'm not that late to the party on season 7. I'm only about 6 months late to that party.
Yeah. That's good.
But,
that's good. Yeah.
But
some shared experience.
I watched this. I stayed up late to watch the series finale because I was like, I have to finish this. I woke up and immediately watched it again. I just thought it was incredible.
Yeah,
which brings us into some exciting news about what the Droid Boys are planning on doing.
And one thing before we mention that, and you probably know better than I do about this, it's so incredible that Dave Filoni was doing that and wrapping up. And I guess, as you said, they've planned things for a long time before they got to finish season 7. Mm-hmm. But he was creating and finalizing season 7 while multitasking on launching The Mandalorian with Jon Favreau. Yep. Pretty incredible to do both of those things.
Yeah, I think they finished season 7 a week before the premiere of Rise of Skywalker, because he was talking about at the premiere that they had just finished.
Wow.
And that so they were deep in into Mandalorian. It's crazy.
What do you think? I mean, I just want to be in his brain as he watches the Rise of Skywalker after what? I mean, I haven't seen the epic that he concluded in season 7, but from the way you're talking about it,
it's like we just finished one of the best Star Wars stories ever told. Anyway, I'm about to walk into the theater and watch this debacle.
He's probably just happy it took place before Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
I would actually, but I would guess he'd seen the movie well before the actual worldwide premiere.
Not before enough for him to give notes.
But please, Ryan, talk about where the droids are going this 2021 with Clone Wars.
Well, we don't want to make any promises, so we'll hold back a little bit, but we plan to probably do a watch through of the Clone Wars arc by arc at some point in 2021.
That's fair. we all have things going on, and also we don't know what 2021 holds in store for all of us.
Right.
So we will be approaching and sharing these Clone War arcs, but we're going to leave it open as in a date to be named later, but exciting to talk about that and have a lot of time.
And we have every intention of doing this.
Yeah. Something to look forward to. Are we going to do the movie?
I think we must.
Yeah, the movie. I feel like the movie never gets any kind of credit.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I remember watching the movie.
It's not very good.
Yeah, I just remember being like,
I barely remember.
It was fine.
I saw it in theaters.
The animation like isn't quite there yet. Also,
which go back to storytelling. Like there you go. There's like he made a whole series in computer animation because he couldn't afford. They couldn't figure out how to like shoot a live action show on that budget. Like the scale and quality of the series overall is pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, I think the animation of the show is incredible, and especially for like just television, just like normal television. It was on Cartoon Network. I also found out like George Lucas financed the whole thing, as is his way.
That's pretty cool. So it's an independent cartoon too.
Yes.
Well, that's the way for him
that they did in 235. That's cool.
For him to do it so that no one interrupts or interjects or gives notes. Which, again, the more that we see of what is our developing blockbuster cinematic world that is created for all storytelling now, no notes might be fine.
Yeah, he did.
Patty Jenkins
the Empire
would agree.
Strikes Back deal where he said, "I'm going to pay for the whole thing, and you could put it out because I don't have a distribution arm."
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't own theaters yet.
Yeah.
I could actually see us all going. Well, the problem is if you went to Lucas Theater, people would be like, "Is that Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis?"
They wouldn't know where to go.
Yeah, classically, people do always think that.
Hey, you don't live in Big Ten country.
I do not.
Well, that's exciting. We also have some news around the High Republic, but let's talk about so far. I think each of us have dipped our toes in the water of the High Republic. We're not deep into it yet, but we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. Just excited that the High Republic is here. I believe there are 3 stories that have been released now. The first is Light of the Jedi, the first High Republic adult novel. I didn't realize until now that they were targeting that novel as an adult novel. I thought it was just like it's open to everybody, and I'm not, it's not going down the road of some R-rated Star Wars.
No.
Even if some people might think
graphic. They said an adult novel, and they meant it.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I don't know. Any jokes would just
these
reveal.
moves aren't going to milk themselves. They said.
Boy. Here we go again.
There we go.
But with that, there is one adult-oriented.
9 bums.
I think there's a like 13 to 18-year-old introduction book as well, and then a short story that is meant for like 8 to 12-year-olds, and then also the release of the early Marvel collaborative comics that also will be out, and then there's more coming in February. But the first real part of the High Republic is here. I will say. Initial reaction, we're going to talk a little bit more about this later as I'm reading Light of the Jedi. I'm finding it very interesting. The thing I thought is just the way that the High Republic has been built up, and this is not a criticism. I actually like that it's kind of different than what I was expecting. I kind of thought we would start like in the seat of power of the Republic on Coruscant in all its glory with every single bell and whistle and kind of get a sense of what this elite world was all about when it was at its height. And that probably is still coming because I'm only very early into the book.
Right.
But just reading the beginning, I'm like, no, this feels much more grounded, real characters, even in extreme situations that are very appealing and well conceived. And so that was a pleasant surprise and not what I was expecting from the High Republic because it just felt like you're building it as the High Republic. It's a new era of Star Wars. It's the Jedi at their power. I almost thought we were going to be dropped into like some Jedi battle right away. And the Jedi battle would, show them in all their glory. Right. Again, still a possibility, but just kind of fascinating that that's not where it began. That was my first takeaway from what I've read so far.
It's a good sign that they're taking the form or the medium and playing to its strengths. Because opening a novel with a giant lightsaber battle might not be great. It's like, and I mean this with all respect to the Heir to the Empire series, the original Thrawn trilogy, if you will. But the opening is a description of a space battle from afar and it is impenetrable what is happening.
It's a little hard to follow.
I have not started reading I have my copy. It's sitting on my desk of the High Republic. I haven't started reading it yet. I am currently in the midst of inhaling Stephen King novels, so I have to finish one of those before I start this. But I will say this: I read the first page, and it seemed like Charles Soule took a page out of Stephen King's book. Because he knew how to. I read the first page, and this isn't a spoiler. The first line of the book is 3 hours to impact, and I thought, that's some dramatic irony. I don't think they know about this. And I thought that was very intriguing, and I'm excited to start.
Really, what's interesting is there are, and this I don't think is a huge spoiler, but it's just like there's actually like a series of impacts before they get down to that 3 hour count. I'm like, what are they counting to if this is what's happened so far?
Yeah,
Jesus,
what is the relative
impact.
time?
Yeah, I mean, the people around the neighborhood are going to start calling me Belle because my nose is in a book.
There goes that Ryan with this book on.
Yeah, that's right.
Who reads
that's
like
exactly
Ryan?
Right.
Who reads like Ryan?
They're confused because I'm reading a book, but I'm also drinking 12 eggs out of a glass.
Oh, so you're a Rocky Bell, is what you're saying.
I'm a Gaston Bell.
Ryan.
Oh,
he's Ryan.
Gaston, and yeah, there you go.
But we can't go further lest we invoke the litigious nature of Disney, the Disney Corporation.
We don't want to get sued. It's the
So
shitting.
what is the shitting? What is your version of there must be more than this provincial life?
It would be more than this pandemic life.
There it is. Should have gotten there myself.
I'm excited that there's new Star Wars out there. Like, it's exciting to have something that's universally new. I know, you said, Ryan, we're late to the game on the Clone Wars, and that was new to us. But I like kind of riding the wave with everyone to like being introduced to this, because it's going to be a slow. Like, you'll have folks like us and the fine listeners of this podcast getting these books and reading them, and then all of a sudden it might kind of wave out a little bit, and then you'll start to see its influence, and all of a sudden you'll be on a website and be like, books to read, and it might be one of these. So I think it's cool to be on this.
And we a few of us were watching the launch event that they had, the live stream, and all of the authors seemed so enthusiastic and excited about telling Star Wars stories, and that was really, contagious. And it made me really excited for like this next arc that they're doing. And A Test of Courage, the Justina Ireland book that's supposed to be, it's aimed at a younger audience, but the reviews on that have been great.
Yeah, I almost just picked them all up. I was looking. I'm gonna try to just get them one at a time, so that way I don't have a stack of books, which could be daunting. I think it feels good too to also, when with storytelling, especially with these like universal, like metamedia things, to be at the point where you're learning all the information with everyone else. Like, Clone Wars is great, but then it's like, what am I supposed to be looking for certain pieces? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's cool that we're all going to experience this as one thing. This is really kind of like an ultimate form for a franchise, I think. Franchise, like movie making, is that you kind of deploy this universal storytelling device to it. And Lucasfilm was trying this a few times with The Force Unleashed was, I think, their last attempt. And before that was Shadows of the Empire. So this is like, it's not new territory for them to try something like this, but it's new for the Disney era, which I think is cool. Like, we've hit a point where they've made enough. They're kind of just rewriting the trajectory that old Lucasfilm had. So they made the movies, and then they needed more stories. So then they built this expanded universe. So now Disney made the movies, and now they need more storytelling. So now we've opened this universe. So it's like we've hit a phase of Star Wars that I just didn't see coming for back when we learned there was going to be new movies. Like, it feels like now we're in it.
Yeah, and it's cool that they're doing something focused. It's like with the previous multimedia projects they've done, it could be a little muddied just because there's so much. It's like, if you like to read Shadows of the Empire, you may not like to play the N64 game, and even if you play the N64 game, the chances of getting past the Mos Eisley speeder bike level is almost impossible.
Or zero, so...
So, yeah, I think it's cool for them to have something kind of focused, like a publishing initiative.
Yeah.
As someone I said who's been reading Stephen King novels for the last 2 weeks, I've decided that it's really important for kids to read. So, get out there and read, kids. It's the most important thing I've decided in the last week.
Children are number one audience member of this podcast.
And it seems like they have like a really enthusiastic group of people behind it. Let me tell you something. The world is a horrible place, especially right now. And if you ever wake up one day and you feel like a little too, you say, hey, I feel a little too good about how I feel about the world today. I don't have enough to worry about. Go ahead and read the comments section on the live stream of the High Republic reveal, and you'll feel plenty terrible about the world there. Why someone would watch an entire live stream just to scream about how they shouldn't have made the sequel trilogy is baffling to me.
You saw my message, Ryan?
Or people just saying this isn't Star Wars, it's just SJW fanfic. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Stop it.
What is that? What is the point of that?
I mean, there are a few things that I consider to be real guiding lights in my life. One of them is always choose sleep. Probably has something to do with having 2 young children in my life.
Right.
The
You've
second
stopped driving since you took that.
Yeah.
That oath.
Exactly.
True or false?
The second one is never read the comments.
Never read the comments. And you know what?
Wow.
It's a thing. It's something broken in me that I had to read.
Yeah.
them.
What a 21st century adage, Mike. Never
I mean,
read
I
the
feel like
comments.
I'm not the only one, but
That has to be, Mike, when you're famous, podcast famous,
like all of us.
Can your book about how you did it be called Never Read the Comments?
It shouldn't.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to do
That's
that
already
at some
the name
point.
of Anthony Daniels' second autobiography.
Yeah, I knew he was going to get it. I knew he was
He's got him.
Were we
He's
all
got
racing to it?
him. Incoming transmission. No,
But I
it's
think-
awful. Why are people still talking about this?
Why,
I don't know,
what?
but it
The
does.
sequel trilogy. Yeah, like it's what do they want now? What?
And look, let me behind the curtain for you guys. I don't listen to either one of those rules. I do them all the time. I always make the wrong choice. I always
wait
stay
a
up
second.
late, and I
I
always
take
read
it
the
back.
comments.
He stays up late reading the comments while he's
can't-
driving.
Yeah.
You can enjoy my book. Always read the comments. Forward by Mike.
And my book, I Am the Comments.
Oh. But I say that because when I hear things like that, I'm ready to move on. I mean, I still love The Last Jedi. I'll continue to love The Last Jedi. But when it is brought up all the time by people saying why they make the sequels, this was awful, all of those comments, it like keeps it in the forefront of my mind to want to continue to push back on that.
Yeah.
And I wish that we didn't have to.
Well,
Yeah.
we have a podcast, and so we have a responsibility.
But to get back to the High Republic, I do want to say, I think I brought it up in the podcast before, this is like that feeding ground of, hey, does this work? Does this not work? What do people like? What character do we love? What do we want to bring up to an animated show? What do we want to bring up to a series and maybe a movie at some point? Which is really exciting to have that kind of baseline. And I think the way that they did this is what, 2-3 years in the making? And helmed by a publishing wing with input from the Star Wars Lucasfilm Story Group. A lot of time was put into this. They found 5 writers that they've found success with before in Star Wars books and in other books. They brought them together and they're like committing to it here. And I think it's just a very exciting time to think that we could be reading the first iterations of what becomes a character that we all know and love maybe 5, maybe 10 years from now, that we see the live action version of, whatever character that we love in this, a la Ahsoka, and we get to have that moment that maybe we didn't have because for our generation, we were maybe at the point that we were a little bit old for Clone Wars when it first came out, and we went to revisit it, but now we're reading this as it happens, and we might have that too. Again, on us for not watching Clone Wars at that time, But I think there's just sometimes there's a disconnect between what you end up watching or reading or consuming when it comes out. And I think now that we're all in the place that we are, this could be a really exciting thing to see this all play out over years and how people really respond to it. Because I love right now listening to people respond to Ahsoka from the Last Jedi, or from not the Last Jedi, from the Jedi episode in Mandalorian, and decide that I'm actually interested in now going and watching all the Clone Wars. And that's great. And I've already consumed some of it beforehand, but it's really exciting to me to see that kind of response. And it's exciting to see that the High Republic could eventually do the same thing.
Yeah. So in like you said, 5 or 6 or 7 years, when one of our children looks at us with those big globe eyes and says, "Papa, who's Avar Chris? And why do we love them?" You say, little one. Youngling, Avar Chris first appeared in a comic book and then a novel. And they go, "Papa, I want to read." And you say, "We can read. However, we need to make it past the wastelands before the marauders get us."
Well, I think you meant, however, you have to listen to an 8-part audio podcast series about the High Republic by your papa.
Right.
Before you can do
Papa
anything
and your
else.
3 uncles.
And your 3 uncles.
Pull out your space phone and hologram into the podcast section.
Which is what is our way of introducing all of you to the Outpost Book Club, High Republic,
Oh,
where we
I
will
like
be
that.
talking a lot about the High Republic, starting with the Light of the Jedi. We're going to be reading 5 chapters every week in an Outpost for the book club, and we hope you'll join us as well. Some of you have probably already read the entire thing. You might just consume it all in one night. I love that. I used to do that with books at different points in my life. We wish that we would do, even if we consume it that quickly, but join us for, 5 chapters at a time, discussion about some of those little tidbits that reference other parts of Star Wars, what these new characters could be, what they mean to us now, and what this new era of Star Wars is. I'm really excited to dig into all of it with you, because one of my favorite things that we've done on this podcast was reading the Colin Trevorrow script for episode 9 and then going through and dissecting it, but mostly reacting to it and discussing it and having so much fun with it. And I think we could do the same. I don't think we'll have as much of the detail and hearkening back to some of the other movies or other stories, because this story is meant to stand alone in its way, despite it also having Yoda. But I think that'll be fun to do a little bit more of that in-depth Star Wars discussions based on new stories.
And for those of you out there thinking, is this just another ploy in Ryan's strategy to get invited onto the Mean Book Club? The answer is yes. It's what it is. Both things can be true.
It's true.
It is a New York Times bestseller.
As my therapist always says, you can hold 2 thoughts in your head at the same time. And yes, I do want to get on the Mean Book Club, but I also want to read Light of the Jedi.
Ryan, I burned those chances. Did you listen to that episode?
I did. I thought you were
None
great,
of us are welcome.
Chris, I
listen
thought
to
you
the
were
plugs?
great. I thought,
thank
I mean, listen, I don't want to declare war on the Mean Book Club, but they had an episode this week that, great as always, they didn't even have a guest on it, which I couldn't help but see as a personal affront.
I think that's... Where is Sam, by the way?
Oh, my God.
Wait a second.
Oh, no.
Wait a second. Is he on NBC?
So listen, Chris and I, being that we live in the same city, we're going to mask up and meet in the Rockaways, sit on the beach with our books, and get the Light of the Jedi read.
I like this.
We're going to get our beach reads in.
Yeah. Winter beach reads. That's what we're doing here on the
Yeah,
pod.
it'll be us in the Polar Bear clubs.
Mike, you mentioned staying up all night reading it chapter by chapter. I haven't done that since I last read TV Guide.
I fall asleep if I'm reading at 3 p.m.
It's really hard. I'm reading it on my iPad. How's everyone? I feel like that's appropriate for Star Wars.
I got the old hardcover, my man.
So I was ready for the hardcover. I kind of thought we might be doing first few chapters on this edition of the pod. So I was going to get the hardcover, but it said it wouldn't arrive until January 9th. So I'm like, well,
Wow.
guess I'm
Look at that.
going Kindle. And
Sold out.
they wouldn't let you buy the well, it wasn't, I don't know if it was sold out, but it was that I was trying to do it as a pre-order, and they just couldn't pre-order deliver it the next day.
Right.
And maybe if I would have pre-ordered months ago, it would have gotten there on the day of release, but I didn't do that. But with the Kindle version, I wanted to get it right away so I could read it right away, but I also was like, hey, can I get the hardcover and get the Kindle? And no, they don't let you do that anymore.
Oh, I got the Apple version, and then I just printed it out. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait, what do you mean they won't let you do that anymore?
Not all books. There's only certain books that you can get a hardcover copy and the Kindle edition added to it. Like you have to pay additional money to get the Kindle
I see.
edition.
I thought you meant like they were like, no, you already have a copy.
We have his, we have his ID.
I didn't want to pay more, so I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Whatever it would be. I think it was probably actually some books they'll let you pay another $3 to get the Kindle edition, but I think for a new release, they're like, no, you have to pay full price if you want the Kindle edition.
It's gonna be like $3 in a month.
So I'll get it that way.
Maybe we should just read it aloud to each other.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like Jim Dale.
That won't be any copyright infringement, I'm sure.
We'll change some words.
I actually wonder how detailed the Disney copyright lawyers are. Would they find us?
Let's find out.
I mean, they could be listening.
I don't
right
know.
now.
Will
and if
you?
they are, open
We've
door
all
policy on the pod. They can come on as guests.
Oh, I'd love to talk about how like Disney sues people.
How detailed are they is the real question. Like, I mean, I don't know. Because what didn't we say, Ryan, that if we ever got, on this podcast, a cease and desist from Disney, that'd be a great achievement?
It would be a great achievement, second only to getting invited onto the Mean Book Club.
Well, our last topic is a bit of a rumor, nothing confirmed yet, but we knew that Kevin Feige was in the mix for leading helming a Star Wars project. Some news today, and from several different sources, I believe that it came from Deadline, but picked up by others, that Kevin Feige, his movie will be written by Michael Waldron, who is leading the Loki series currently that's going to be coming out on Disney Plus this year in 2021, and also is the writer of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, so the next Doctor Strange movie, which I believe is in production currently. But that being said, my first thought was this is someone at Disney has said, get me people who've done the superhero thing right. And this, to me, is what we've been thinking about for a while and we thought might happen and is happening, is the superheroification, the Marvelification of Star Wars. And look at the list so far. Taika Waititi. He has done 2 Marvel movies, or is on his way to doing 2 Marvel movies, been very successful. He's also been great beyond that. And then, of course, Patty Jenkins is doing one as well. Now add in Kevin Feige with another Marvel alum from what he's done, even though it hasn't aired yet. It's still someone they've liked in their Marvel side of things. I feel like it's a branded, stamped thing. Hey, this has worked with Marvel. Let's bring it to Star Wars, not just in the sense of doing the cinematic universe and what they're doing with the series, but let's use the people that we know have been successful. Now, Patty Jenkins was in the DC universe and not the Marvel universe, so a little bit different there. But nonetheless, who has been doing this right on the superhero blockbuster side? And I've never thought of Star Wars as a superhero. I've always thought of Star Wars as much more than superheroism. However,
Western?
Yeah, of a Western.
Yeah.
But all that being said
a
is...
Western omelet.
It's this safe choice of, all right, hey, let's work with people who've done it well within Marvel, and now they're going to come and do it with Star Wars, which is a little bit disappointing to me because, as we talked about earlier in the podcast, the idea of what's happening in our current culture, what needs to be commented on, what should a story be told about in reference to what's going on in our world, that's one thing that Marvel has not done. That's not what they do with their movies. That doesn't mean they're not entertaining and good, but I've always expected more from Star Wars and gotten more from Star Wars. And, it is not the height of mythology in terms of, what some sort of lessons you can learn, but it certainly has passed on lessons to me throughout my life that have mattered. And I think if the Marvel superhero side just starts to take over, which we felt a little bit like that at the end of the season 2 of The Mandalorian, where are we with Star Wars other than it just being, again, great action, adventure, fun cinema, but doesn't have anything really to say?
Yeah, I as you were saying that, I was kind of going through the writer's his history here. So he's written assistant writer for Community, Harmon Quest, Rick and Morty. So he's really kind of just entering into the Marvel verse, I guess.
Well, I think they're all talented. I don't dismiss anybody as not being talented. They're completely talented in this, and they bring a lot to the table.
I think I'm with you though. I'm interested to see. I hope it's not just a like a Marvel. How would you say Marvelization of Star Wars? I hope that we actually. I mean, people. Hey, a great green philosopher once said, "People are like onions; they have layers." And so I hope that they could exercise different storytelling muscles in this. And I mean, you always got to go back to they've got Lucasfilm, they've got Kathleen Kennedy, they've got the story team there that can hopefully steer the ship in the direction of Star Wars.
Well, and I don't diminish anybody who's part of it. It's more of just like it's this seal of approval, and we're not going to go outside that anymore. We tried to do that with what we brought in with Gareth Edwards, with Lord and Miller. It didn't work. We had to make changes. You could say for some people, Rian Johnson did work. For other people, it didn't. So let's go with what seems to work for everybody. And that's what the Marvel version is. And I don't think there's some grand conspiracy that Feige is now taken over and Kathleen Kennedy isn't doing anything. I don't believe any of that. I'm just saying there's somebody at an executive level at Disney who's like, Feige, what have we learned? Please pass on that, and let's get the ball and run with it at Lucasfilm.
There's a thing that like in academia, like universities don't like to hire professors that graduated from that university because they want to make sure that there's a diversity of thought within their institution. And I think this feels a little bit like, not specifically because it's Disney, like with Marvel, because they own both. It feels like a little bit like they're hiring people who graduated from their own university because we're getting to a point where there's like 12 people that are just the people who do this stuff. Yeah. And they're good at it. There's a reason that they're the people that they call, and I understand that. But at the same time, I think that it's not going to lead too much. And I'm not dismissing a lot of the exciting filmmakers that they've hired to do new movies and series, which we've gone over. But I think that if they continue to just be like, let's get, for every Leslie Headland, we're going to get a Kevin Feige. I think that there's going to be a lack of diversity of thought. Obviously, they're working on true diversity behind and hopefully in front of the camera as well. Yeah. And while I don't think that they're completely there yet, I think that there are strides being made there. But I think at the same time, it's the Star Wars directors are going to become are coming from the Marvel directors or coming from the DC directors. It's going to be, there's just a smaller group of people who do these things.
I agree. I think what's happening is we're seeing more of just mechanical choices to a certain degree, where it's like, okay, well, we know that they can make something, and not to be cynical, but it's like, we know that this works. So as a business, we have to make this decision because we might not be able to take the risk that we once could. And maybe even given the state of things in the world now, maybe it's even more so now than ever before. Maybe it's like we need a sure thing. We can't, with
production costs going up.
We can't mess around.
But I think that's the thing, is they're going to take they are taking bigger risks within streaming. I think it's within the movies, and you can. There's a big argument being made right now is there even a difference anymore? There's just this streaming content. I hate content as a word, but are movies and TV shows and streaming any different now, as we all consume them in one place and watch them in one place and don't go anywhere else? Different conversation to be had, but
yes, they are different.
No,
they just are.
Well, I agree they are, but I think there's a point that's being made now that it's more in that sense. But with it in mind, I think the movies, which they're still tentpole or not, saga or not, they're still going to be these bigger events that they're going to make, even if it's in a theater or at home. The eventification of it is still going to be a big part of the way they do these things. And so far, it seems like the streaming shows, they're going to take some risks. They're going to do some different things. Leslie Headland is not the safe bet of Marvel. Seems like a very good storyteller, a great creator. Yeah. And it seems like they're interested in doing something different with her, which is awesome. Whereas with the movies, it's who's been successful at this scale before, and let's work with them. And that, again, you maybe can't fault them there. It just isn't necessarily as exciting as what it felt like when we heard what the slate of early Star Wars movies were within Disney.
Also, I understand that it seems contradictory because we were talking about how George Lucas used to be kind of the figurehead of all of this. So it's like, what's the diversity of thought when there's one person?
Yeah.
The difference is that when George Lucas was doing it, there wasn't 12 series.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, that's a different thing. And it's like, I'm not trying to pick on this person. It's just the example that I have. If I'm a fan of pop culture and these kind of mythological stories, archetypal stories, comic books, Star Wars, things like that, how many of the things that I'm going to see like have to be made by Jon Favreau?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like how many of these things do we need to have made by Kevin Feige? It's like I've enjoyed 22 movies he's made.
right. Yeah, it's almost like diversity can expand people's perception. like I think what you said in academia, have diversity of thought. I mean, I think that goes down to actual levels of diversity as well. Like,
sure, of course.
That's why it's important. And I think I'm really hoping that there's a shift towards that in everything everyone does.
Yeah, because if to get like serious, if you're talking about like a systemic thing in terms of a lack of diversity in the industry, right? Yes. It's like when you're talking about sure bets, you're talking about people who have had successes in the past, which means it's people who have been given the opportunity to have successes in the past. And historically, the people who have been given those opportunities to have successes, because they're usually given more than one chance, are white men. So within the industry, if you're going with like who has had like a really successful run of things, you're more likely to run into a white man because they have been given more opportunities historically in the industry, which is an unfortunate thing. So that's only going to perpetuate that kind of lack of actual diversity within the industry. Again, I'm not dismissing that Disney has hired a lot of diverse voices to work on Star Wars and Marvel coming up, and that's a very good thing, and those are like very talented artists, and so I'm not dismissing them at all. But if we continue this line of thought where it's like, okay, like, you know, we're taking a chance on one of the series, but for the movie we need to get someone who's a sure bet who has 22 movies under their belt. It's feeding into a systemic issue within the industry.
They can't keep having that as a fallback. Like we can't. We'll do this, but for real we'll do that. Like they can't keep doing that. I really hope that cycle gets broken. And Mike, like you said, maybe, and I know Ryan, you say streaming movies are different things, but we'll just group it as content. I say like maybe streaming will help provide some of that.
I think so. I think it absolutely is. And credit to them, you know, we still haven't even had an official announcement for this Feige film. They know that they're going to work with him, but the two ones so far are diverse filmmakers of different backgrounds with Taika Waititi and Patty Jenkins. They didn't go with Peyton Reed isn't directing one. Trying to think of the other notable Marvel white men directors. Jon Favreau's not directing a movie. So I think
Russos.
The Russos, obviously.
Didn't Martin Scorsese direct one of the Marvel movies?
Oh, yeah. He did. 5, I think, right?
He did all, yeah.
But I think it's exciting to see what the voices will be there. And, you know, I actually think Taika Waititi is maybe the most exciting one for me at the moment. Mostly because I don't think it's not like we're going to get the same kind of Thor Ragnarok type story from him. And potentially, I think without it being a larger cinematic universe story, or maybe it is because it's going to tie back to the streaming shows in some way, there might be a bit more freedom for these writer-directors in these movies, even though I'm hoping for some sort of trilogy in the future at some point for Star Wars again. It doesn't need to be connected in any way to the Skywalker saga. But these two movies that have been officially announced, and even the third with Feige, seem to be in the standalone variety. And as a standalone, there's less other work that the movie maybe has to do that could give these creators a little bit more freedom to exercise their voice.
Yeah. I mean, I think Solo, love it or hate it, I think we're set up a little bit because it's like, you got to work with Han Solo and Chewbacca. Like,
Yeah.
what can you do there?
I mean,
But
I think
now-
that's why Rogue One is actually like really successful, is because it was just they just needed to tell one story.
Yeah.
I thought that movie was weird though when Luke shows up at the end.
I thought it was
Well-
weird that he was dressed like Leia.
Boy, that would really send a certain set of Star Wars fans into a whole different kind of tizzy.
Oh my god!
Well,
Wow. Well, I'm in a tizzy over how happy I am that there's new High Republic.
and look forward to that next week. We're recording this in, what is this, the second week of January, first week of January? I don't
Feels
know.
like
when this
it
is.
feels like the 100th week of January. I'll be honest.
It does feel
Guys,
that
thank
way.
God 2020 was over, Han. 2021 could
You
really
know,
sail.
by
All
some calendars,
clear
2020 is not over. So I'm just waiting.
Well, we look forward to the full week of January. We will find the High Republic and join us for the first 5 chapters. If you've read it all already, join us then. Or if you want to read along with us, we'd love to have you on the Outpost. We'll keep on our regular episodes as well. If there's obviously notable news, we'll jump in with that. But we're going to have some fun with the High Republic in the next few weeks. And then we'll let you know about our Clone Wars arc discussions as we get down the road here in 2021. Exciting times here on the Droids.
Yeah.
You know, there's
Oh,
a
and
lot
Happy
going
New
on in the
Year.
world, but
Yeah,
there's
Happy
some
New
good
Year.
stuff. Happy New Year.
And
Happy.
Happy New Year, my boys.
What is
Happy New Year to you.
is it? Happy light cycle? What's a year in Star Wars? Parsec.
I'll see you in hell.
No, but didn't they say for the
Yeah,
next
there's
cycle?
something-
The next cycle?
Yeah, because planets spin around each other. So
Yeah.
happy new cycle.
Happy new cycle. All of
Happy
our
news
droids.
cycle.
No, not that kind of cycle.
Oh boy.
Anyway, well, that is going to do it for the Droids You're Looking For, a Star Wars podcast.
What they throw. Annie.